So, good morning. We are here with Raymond Nsereko. Did I pronounce that properly?
Yeah, closely.
Okay. He is our fellow from Uganda and has been here now for 1 month. And we are going to subject him to the apexart interrogation. So, good morning, Raymond.
Good morning, Stephen.
And welcome again to our program.
Thank you.
So, you've been here now almost a month.
Yes.
So, you're prepared for this list of questions.
Really, I'm so prepared.
Okay.
I'm so prepared.
So, let's start out. When Matthias returned home from his fellowship, I'm sure he was feeling the way you are now. And what did he tell you about being here?
Well, I remember when Matthias came back from New York City. We talked. He had told me before about the program, and before he traveled for the program, but I didn't know what was. There's no documentation he showed me before he traveled. So he told me, I'm going for a residency, I'm going for fellowship. And we discussed all his trip and the challenges in preparation. Very interesting. And the process. And there he traveled. Well, while he was here, we didn't communicate that much. But on his return, I remember meeting him just a few days on his return. He was overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed. I remember him failing almost to describe, to take me through what he went through, what the fellowship was about. I remember him telling me, Raymond, you just need to go for this fellowship. He told me about his journal page. Of course, he referred me to his journal page. I have a journal page. He was so overwhelmed, and we just needed too much time. He told me before we really sit down, I'll take you through what I've been doing in my fellowship, but you have to first read my journal page, which I read about, and I remember him telling me that he had met very interesting, very inspiring people. And he kept on telling me the people he met, the places he went to. He had a lot of photography. He had a camera and he had taken quite a lot of photographs. So we usually sit with Matthias once an evening after work. We sit, we talk about what we plan to do, how best we can do. So he was always taking me through the different places he had to, the parks he has gone to, the people he has met. And I was challenged to connect. The challenge I had is really putting together the fellowship and his experience, because I realized it in his mind that it was really overwhelming for him, and it had changed him a lot. So it was kind of difficult for him to really take me through a step-by-step process of the entire fellowship. So that's what I got from Matthias.
So, what change did you observe in him?
The most important change I observed, we have been close with Matthias since 1998 when I joined for my undergraduate course in art and design. But Matthias, being a janitor or a cleaner of our studios, he had kind of a low self-esteem, and he didn't have this confidence and passion, and most importantly, the confidence. On his return from the fellowship, he had changed so much. This was a very confident, determined person to do whatever. So our conversation kind of changed from that time. He completely changed. We actually that is the time on his return, before he traveled for the fellowship, we were starting this Uganda Community Arts Skill Development and Recycling organization with him. We had discussed, but practically we hadn't set off. When he returned, he confidently told me, Raymond, we need to now move this organization. Because earlier on we didn't have ideas. We were brainstorming ideas. What should we do? We had stories from each other, but the organization was so not clear of what we were supposed to do. We seemed to have something to do, but we weren't clear, both of us. So after work in the evening, we talk to each other. We sit somewhere out from the university. We talk to each other. We see how best we do, where the opportunities we can apply for. But after his return, he completely changed. We kind of started coming out with activities that we could have the organization take on. We didn't have clear funding, we didn't have clear activities, but we started figuring out activities, and we realized that we could do even activities beyond art and design. So with his confidence and kind of the change in him, I think it was about exposure. It's very important, I've realized, for someone to be exposed. It kind of inspires someone. I realized that Matthias was so inspired, from the exposure he had, from the different organizations, from the different places he traveled. So that took us to another level, that we kind of came up with activities, and we got the confidence even to apply for other programs. And that was very important. I realized in him.
Nice effect. So you had your expectations from what he told you.
Yes.
And you expected to come here and do certain things that maybe he described. How were your expectations not what you found?
Well, what I can say is that expectations, it's about residencies and fellowships are more of what your profession or your discipline is. If I'm a designer, or if I'm a painter or an artist, for the artists who have been exposed, there are very few people. The culture of residencies and fellowships is just coming in the country with the artists and designers. So the few artists and designers that I've heard about fellowships and residencies are more know that I'm going for a discipline that I'm grounded in my profession. So if it's a painting, or usually I'll talk about painting, the fine art, because they're the most common fellowships and residencies that have been, first, just a little bit to go back. The background of fellowships and residencies has been so much well known from our professors and lecturers. At Makerere University, it's professors and lecturers who tell us about fellowships they have traveled to and all that. So that's how we got to know. And that's how I got to know about fellowships and residencies. So my expectation was the same background, was built on the same background of what I hear about these fellowships. On reference to Matthias's recommendation for me to check on the Apex, because he kept on telling me, Raymond, for you to know more about the program, the fellowship I went to, check out the apexart, because I remember him always telling me, check out the apexart program, Apex. I went to this website. I saw people participate. I read about their profiles. I was very eager to know the fellows and their profiles, because I wanted to match them with mine and Matthias's. I could see people coming from fellowships in South Africa, fellowships all over the world. So I read about the history of the Apex Fellowship from 1994 and how it started with kind of orientation to curatorship. So I found it challenging to understand the Apex Art program in relation to other fellowships, because other fellowships are If you're a painter, you're given space, you're given a room, you are inspired by the nature of the country. You go to, if it's America, you're inspired, you come up with artworks, you're expected to have studio walk-ins as you work in progress. Thereafter, you make a show. After the show, of course, there's a lot of print media, an exhibition, and the cocktail and all that, and that's the end of the exhibition. You return home. But here I was with the apexart program. It was very difficult to combine the two. So I really said, who are these people who attend these fellowships? Maybe I can relate to them and know what they do. It was again very complicated according to people's journals, what they write and their backgrounds, because they are from varied backgrounds. You can't say, I hoped to see painters, sculptors, designers, but this was a real cocktail of different people. So I was challenged. Matthias one time tells me, Raymond, apply for this fellowship. I think you will benefit so much. I remember it was lunchtime and I was rushing out for lunch. I was in the computer lab. We usually sit together with him in the computer lab, checking on the internet, He told me, you're not going for lunch until you fill out this form. I told him no. It's quite challenging to fill in these fellowship programs, and you fill in, sometimes they don't get back to you. He told me, Raymond, you're the person, I think it's this opportunity, and I'm not letting you go for lunch. I told him, okay. He told me it's a short form, it won't take more than hours for you. I've recommended you, and I think you fit for this project. I told him, but there are so many people around, professors and around. He told me, Raymond, fill in this form, I'm sitting here. I said, now, lunch, let me just, because we really work together and we don't like to let each other down on projects. I was like, okay, we fill in the form. He said, okay. After it didn't take long, like ordinary fellowship program forms.
Did you know that he had already recommended you and provided us with information about you?
No, I didn't know. I thought it was a trick to pin me down to really answer, to apply for this program, because I didn't know that he had communicated. He told me, Raymond, I've really made sure for me, I've recommended you, please don't disappoint me. I've told you about this program. I participated, was it in 2015? It was some time ago. Well, I said, okay. I filled in the form and I was like, most programs take long to get back to you. Then there's a recommendation from professors and quite a lot of requirements from you. So I wouldn't think it would be, and given the background of Matthias, most fellowships you recommend, you get a letter from the vice chancellor. 3 professors have to recommend you that have gone for that fellowship. I was like, he told me, all you need is my recommendation, and I've done it. So I applied, and it was so interesting. A few days down the road, I got this letter from you telling me I was so surprised. I was like, what? So I was so shocked. I couldn't tell. I showed him, the first person I told him. He was like, you need to meet Steven, you need to meet the people, you need to meet Elizabeth, because we're so much in touch with Elizabeth. Now, you're in. You will never regret what I told him, okay, fine, let's go on the process. But again, like fellowships, you get this letter. There was that kind of uncertainty, dragging feet towards the entire process, uncertainty. So I moved on. Slowly, I was doing other things just in case anything changes. So my expectation was about the ordinary way, and that's the ordinary way where residencies and programs, fellowship programs are conducted, and that I guess that caused a lot of my misunderstanding of the apexart program, because it's completely unique and different from others. So when after this time I've been here, I realized that was the missing link that really made me not really understand.
Did he make the right choice?
Or I would say he made the right choice.
Okay.
Surely he made the right choice, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a short quote here from your journal, from your meeting with Margot Fox when you went to the botanical garden. You wrote, "As we interacted, I realized and strongly believed that as a country we surely have a lot to do for our nation and need a lot of interaction, exposure, and inspiration from the developed nations in order for us to achieve the change we aspire for and deserve for our country." What surprised you about New York City, and what depressed you a little bit?
My biggest surprise. While I was writing that article, I've realized that for over the time I've been here, all my articles have been filled with great. Whenever I go, it's great. Whenever it's magnificent, it's supernatural. So I paused a little bit, and when I went with Margaret yesterday, and I realized it's really. I realized what it means to call a country developed, and what it means to call a country not developed, or third world, or underdeveloped. From my experience, the places I've been visiting, the people I've been visiting, it sank in me that surely, as a generation, there's a lot we have to do. I try, whenever I have resources in Uganda, to visit places like the Botanical Garden. I've been there more than 3 times. It's an Entebbe, quite a little bit, 45 minutes away drive. I try to visit these places, and I've liked the apexart program because it has really emphasized my kind of skeptic, my kind of unfounded visits to different parts of the country and parks. So I realized that this park, for example, in Uganda, the Botanical, has a lot of potential. But the poor management, many of these resources, we have similar resources, but there's something not matching up to what my experience is in New York City. It's really nice. It's really nice. And I greatly appreciate the peace and stability Uganda has had for the past 30 years. The greatest part of the nation has had. However, I think it's time for us to go to another level as a country. And for us to go to another level as a country, we as the upcoming generation need to utilize so much mentorship, inspiration, guidance from the nations that have already done this. So we really need this kind of relationship with cities like New York City. We need to visit. It's very important. It's very important to visit these cities, these great cities, and see what is going on. I was really wherever I've gone in New York City, I've really been overwhelmed because I keep on changing context of what if this is back in Uganda? What do I relate to? If I go to the Masonic Hall, what do I relate to in Uganda? If I go to the Botanic, where have I been? If I'm traveling to see the Brooklyn Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, how do I change? In what context do I see this bridge within my country?
Okay, something very important. We don't want people to feel like you are coming here so we can show you what's good and you can compare it to your country, which is not good. which is why I ask you the second part of the question. There is something we gain with all of this activity and building and everything, but there's also something that we lose. What do we lose?
I think the loss it's really capitalistic. It's really, I find it as a very capitalistic kind of society that without, the well-to-do do really so well, and the really not well-to-do are really doing so badly, and I sometimes feel so bad when I think about what those people are going through. It must be so tough for them to stay in New York City. That is something I feel so bad. It must be so bad for these people who are so homeless people who have no jobs. I look at that kind of group of people, and sometimes I believe that they must be going through so much, so they must be feeling so bad at their hearts because of the nature of the capitalism going on in the city.
And at home, these people would be taken care of by their clans, or are they looked after by their, how is it different? How do you take care of people at home better, do you think?
I think, of course, they are there. They are these people, but the majority of them are taken up by this social communal structure. So you find that many of them, culturally and with extensive families, they have this backup for them they can fall back to. They have a kind of comfort zone that takes care of the majority, really a big group of people. Without such a system, it will be quite really not good. But I think with our kind of background, the communal kind of background, I think that's a very good aspect of the social. We used to say that there's a common saying that in our culture that a child belongs to the village, to a whole village. So there is that kind of security, there is that kind of support system that people always take advantage of, and it helps them to make a living.
Okay, so I'm going to break the order of my questions because that kind of brings up two of the experiences that you've had here, one being psychotherapy. And I wonder, how you think it might integrate into Ugandan society, and if you think there is a need or there would be a benefit now that you have a better understanding of one of the forms of therapy that is available to people here. And what did you think about therapy before?
Well, physiotherapy is not very common from my perspective. It's not a very common kind of official, profession, and it's not a very official kind of profession, and I call it a setup, but people are not fond of physiotherapy sessions so much back in Uganda. One is, I think, the social structure. So I kind of provide some physiotherapy sessions. The social, the culture, the tradition. I think it's in one way or another. People must be practicing it, but in line with their tradition and culture. So, as Uganda is evolving towards more of a capitalistic kind of economy, with time it's very important to have a physiotherapy sessions from my experience and the benefit I've got from the physiotherapy sessions. It's very important to have physiotherapy. I think it's a growing, and I believe that it's a growing kind of area and discipline within the Ugandan settings, as many people are traveling and getting exposed and interfacing different challenges. I think it's a very important kind of discipline experience.
Not to speak for Matthias, and not to say anything that you don't think he would want you to say, did he have any response? Because you may recall early on, I mentioned that I explained the kind of talk therapy that you participate in here as having an educated best friend that you can talk to about personal things. So in a lot of situations, I think maybe a priest or a religious figure may occupy that position. One of the main differences being that a therapist is non-judgmental,
Exactly.
whereas a religious person might be fairly judgmental in terms of right, wrong versus personal. So now you and he will talk about what this means.
Okay. I think it's just a little bit generally. But it was quite interesting when I remember one time when Matthias openly told me, Raymond, you need to meet a lady called Nancy. She's very interesting. And all he told me, she's a mother. And that was it. He didn't tell me anything else. He told me, Raymond, you need to meet Matthias. I don't know whether you'll be meeting him, because he didn't know. He told me, I don't know whether you'll meet him. She's a mother. So that is all I had from him. And when I came, I was always looking at my schedule, because he always hinted on her, but he wasn't sure that whether I'll meet her. So I looked forward to meeting Nancy, who is really a mother. So against that background, I think professionally, like you have said, a physiotherapist is non-judgmental and his profession with the physiotherapy. And whereas, of course, traditionally and religiously, some people would hardly go for what we call physiotherapy sessions with some of the religious leaders they know, with some of the cultural traditional leaders they know. So I think there's a lot of benefit from a neutral professional person, physiotherapist. I find a lot of benefit to interact, to have sessions with a neutral kind of physiotherapist, and who doesn't have any background. However, of course, I know having a little bit of background also may have some importance, but I would prefer, if I was given two choices, of someone having a physiotherapist with some background about you and having a completely neutral physiotherapist. I would prefer completely a neutral, someone I don't know, someone completely out of my tradition,
6,000 miles away, maybe.
6,000 miles away.
Can I jump in and
Please,
ask?
please.
I would want to know a little bit more. And in your bio, where you talk about UCASDR, the
Yes,
group
yes,
that you
yeah.
run, you mentioned therapy as being a part of the services or things that you try to integrate within the model, and I wanted to know how that works compared to your experience with therapy here, or how that might inform your work and what the organization does in regards to therapy.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a very good one. The difference, we and Matthias had a very interesting program. There's a professor called Professor Jion Sonke. She's from the University of Florida. She's a specialist in art therapy. She came over to Uganda and introduced what, before actually she came to Uganda, there was a program we were running at the Infectious Diseases Institute, which is the biggest infectious diseases institute in Kampala and Uganda. This institute mainly focuses on HIV, the HIV program in Uganda, looking and distribution of antiretroviral drugs to patients. Quite a big number of patients who go to this hospital, Mulago Hospital, the biggest referral hospital in the country. So, some time back, we were approached by the director of this center as the School of Industrial and Fine Arts. I forget the name, but I think it was an American. He approached our dean and introduced a program. There was a challenge at this hospital. Very many people were coming to this hospital, I would say a day, over 500 to 1,000 people to receive their antiretroviral drugs. So what happened is these people were sitting here, were coming very early to the hospital. Many of them were coming from outside Kampala, and they were coming to this infectious disease institute to pick their drugs and be advised on health living and about HIV/AIDS. So they were sitting long hours. These were frustrated people, first of all. These were really not well-to-do, poor people with large families. So someone will come for their drug regimen from 5 o'clock in the morning and get the drugs at around 2 or 3 in the evening. There was nothing to eat. These people had nothing they had left for their families. So the director came up with an interesting program. Can we have kind of a therapy? Can we engage these people in doing something as they wait for hours? And could this help them get some beat, whatever they can get as they wait? Can we get the expressions? Can we know what is going on in their mind? Can we get a story from them? That's how I got on this program with Matthias at the first. And it was kind of a therapy where we sat with quite very many youth, old people. In a room, we could have 500 people. So the first time we went there, we were like, I believe the director was like, you're creative people. Can you come up with simple activities for someone who has never been exposed to art to do something? So we were a team, the dean organized a team of a few people. We went there and we started organizing sessions, simple drawing sessions about their families, about their life. So we started basic drawing. Of course, the program was not taken up well. We used to call the patients clients because we didn't want to stigmatize them. So we used the terminology clients. They were our clients, and that's what we're using around this area. So it was referred to as a therapy. As they wait, they can tell us a story through drawings, because many of them had the stigma. They couldn't talk about their stories. Many of them could tell you, Raymond, you're lucky, you're fine, you're at a university. I'm going through so much in my life. My family has died, I've lost 4 children. I don't want to do anything with you. I just want to get my drugs very fast. I leave this place. So we needed to convince them. So they started doing simple things, drawings, and from the drawings we made them do table mats, scarves, simple activities, crafts, simple crafts. And over a period of time, they opened up a small kiosk for these crafts. So people who had come for this program could buy these small table covers and all that. So the program grew in line of a therapy that they could get. So when someone comes on Tuesday, he's supposed to come back the next Tuesday. So when the person comes back for the next regimen of the drugs, at least he may find that they have bought something and he has some bit of money to keep him there, to have a bottle of water as he waits, and to buy some juice to cater for the kid. So many people didn't have lunch. So as the program grew, people got such small. It could be less than $1, but people were happy. People came and they didn't want to leave the program. They were very occupied. They were always telling us, could you develop such a program in our community? Could you? So as the program grew, we had a container outside. So the place was so now packed up with people that we had to take the craft shop outside the hospital, outside the ward. So people saw purpose in this. People became more lively from the sadness they had. They would open up their stories. That's how we started. That's what we called therapy. Later on, we had Professor Jill Sonke coming from the University of Florida. He told us about the program of art therapy. We tried to adapt it in the university setting. We discussed with Matthias. I think with the change of the director in Mlago, the new director wasn't in for the program. So that's how the program went down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because there were a little bit of funding, basic materials, logistic funding. So I think that went down and there was smaller groups working on it. So when we had Professor come in with students from the university, we encouraged her to come to communities. Matthias talked to her. We have communities. We have people in marketplaces. People in marketplaces, there are so many people, women, youth, and children who have nothing to do. So they are always there in the markets. The rate of crime goes up because people have nothing to do. Of course, they have very nice fruits, very good fruits, but there's this problem. So we're like, could we engage these people in kind of other activities, even beyond art? That's how we went into the organization. And as we saw that, we got, I think, about 5 students. We took them into the community. There's a marketplace near the university. And we had these students from Florida University engage with the community. Some of them prefer to work with the children because the mothers work with the children. Some of them prefer to work with schools, with the school children. And some of them prefer to work with the women. And we're doing quite different projects. Some of them were doing briquettes because we try to utilize resources within the environment to make these products. We don't really buy a lot of materials, right. But we look at the environment and say, could we make renewable energy briquettes instead of charcoal to cut the trees? Because they already have this charcoal and they have all this residue thrown away. And it's waiting to be taken away as a waste. So we engage them, could you do this? Could you? That's how we started the art therapy, and that is the line we follow up in that art therapy, which is completely different from the physiotherapy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's about occupying the mind in a way that gives you more understanding of yourself and is productive and makes you feel better and have more understanding.
Exactly. That is it. So that's how they could be found.
Mm-hmm. So how did you make New York feel like home? What did you do? What did you eat? Did you call people? What did you do to connect yourself to home while you were here?
Yeah, wow, that's, first of all, being a fellow in New York from Uganda, I had no friends at all. I had no Ugandans I knew in New York City, Manhattan, Bronx. So that means I was alone in my apartment, didn't call up people. Apart from, I think I saw Ryan first for lunch. Mm-hmm. That he was my first person I met in New York. But how did I feel New York as part of my home? I remember when I was a bachelor, it reminds me on when I was a bachelor, when I had no family, I had just left university. I enjoyed my bachelorhood so much in my small house. I was living close to the university. When I graduated, I was living home, and at one time I worked. Then at one evening I told my father, I'm leaving home, I think I've got a house to rent and I'm leaving. He told me, are you sure you will manage life and will you rent? I was saving some bit of money and I was paying rent before even I moved in, so that I'm sure I have at least a year. So it reminds me so much of to stretch a little bit of my bachelor life, having my own space where I can do anything, where I'm free completely, where I can organize it the way I want. Of course, as I got children, I got married, life changes from your private space, having it the way you want it. Now, having an inclusive space where people are free and enjoy their spaces. So, I miss that kind of interaction and that kind of, what I call non-disturbance, that kind of letting, that kind of all-inclusive home. But it feels so nice to reflect back and enjoy the life during those days.
One of the rules of the program is that you are not allowed to bring your family or your mate. We think it's very, very important for people to be on their own, especially when they've spent a long time caring about family, other people, and such. Do you also feel that it is important that people come alone?
Come along with?
Alone.
Or alone. It's very, very important. It's very important. And it's very important. I don't know how I thought about it. I cleared everything. I didn't clear. I had a laptop. I had a laptop that didn't have any work of what I do. And if it were possible, I would wish someone doesn't even come with a laptop. And you're completely, even a cell phone. Of course, with this modern day and age, you need to have access to the internet. But it's very important to come alone and be there. It's a moment of reflection. It's the moment of, I enjoyed that moment when, after a day of interacting with new people I've met, after visiting places, there's a space you go back to and you continue with your work, but as you continue with your emails, answering emails, you continue with communication on the program, there is this background reflection of what you've been doing, of what you do at home. And that's only possible when you are alone. I liked that so much. It makes you even, I felt that it makes you even think about the people at home more as you reflect. And
in a productive way.
In a productive way.
Right.
And you think about the work you do, you even appreciate it more when you're alone. I absolutely like that, being alone. And of course, as I say, whenever I travel, I hesitate to relate to Ugandan communities in New York City, because I want to get new friends. I want to be with new people. I want to get the culture of new people. I want to leave my comfort zone. I want to leave my apartment and I don't know where I'm going. I have to meet so and so. I've never met that person and he's on my schedule. We talk. But I feel that then the moment you feel that comfort zone, then you'll have visitors in your apartment. Then it's it kind of diverts it entirely diverts your thinking and reflection on the program and beyond the program. So, well, it's really good that no visitors, even at the apartment. I really like that, and I like the duration. I think 1 month is. However, of course, you have so many things going on, and you like to progress. But I just like being alone and reflecting on what I do after a series of interactions.
I have 2 questions that are queued up in my head, and then I'll pass to Elizabeth. We bring people here and to one of the art capitals, but yet we don't promote you as an artist. We don't encourage you to promote yourself. And people have asked me, you bring people that want to make bigger careers, and they come to New York, but yet you don't help them promote their career. As you know, we feel we give people a lot of information and exposure that will help them, but directly people ask us this, and what would you say to them? Are you frustrated that we are not helping you promote your work? What is your feeling about the fact that we do this?
I think, Stephen, I disagree with you there. I entirely disagree with you. People, I think it depends on what you call promotion. You have really promoted me by the exposure to the people I've interacted with. That's promotion. By the opportunity to meet other people. To me, that's what I call promotion. The opportunity I would think I've been promoted. Meeting the different people, interacting. There is no other promotion I can see than opportunity. Someone giving you an opportunity to meet Elizabeth, to meet Josie, to meet Ryan, I call that promoting me. Someone, if I go to the botanical gardens, if I go to meet, if I go to the improv session, the people I met there, if I go to the Japanese language, if you tell me, Raymond, go for a Japanese, that's an opportunity I see, and that's my promotion.
How do you feel, or do you feel that's different than what we didn't do? Like, as a designer, we could have found somebody at the Cooper Hewitt Design Museum, and I mean, that's a different kind of promotion. What do you see as beneficial to the types of promotion that we have done then, if that's how you think of it? What do I think that's also what Stephen's getting at. We didn't promote you as, this designer lecturer from Uganda who's here in New York where people can learn and exchange ideas from about design. How do you feel about us not doing that?
To me, promoting me to meet other designers and as a designer from, I would call that the ordinary way of promotion. Mm-hmm. That's what everyone will do. That's expected, and it's boring. It's quite not interesting.
It's often not about creativity.
Yes.
it often is not about creativity.
Yeah, it's not all. It's not all about. That's what everyone does, and that's what that's really that I've loved about this program. It's doing something, looking at turning promotion. Looking at things a different way, and it wouldn't be interesting for me to really promote me in that way. To meeting up designers, go to a university, and you have to meet a team of designers and having a discussion with the best designers in New York City.
Not that we could get them. Okay, my one other question. We deal with a lot of cross-cultural, cross-racial, cross-sensibility situations. And a lot of the time, these issues are not discussed and brought up. We like these issues, so we like to talk about them. When we have somebody coming from Africa, where you have different, I don't want to say anything that I don't know about. There's basically a certain kind of homogeneity to a community that you don't experience a difference. So if somebody goes to Korea, they are largely surrounded by Koreans. When you come to New York, you see everybody. This is what people really enjoy about New York. But you're coming from Africa, and the US, we have this interesting racial kind of thing going on. And have you had the opportunity to feel not like an African in the US, but also that, but an African American in the US? And have you had discussions with people about this phenomenon here?
Just come again with the question. I haven't got it clearly.
Okay. You're coming from a place that you don't encounter the same kind of difference. You may have tribal differences, like why people separate themselves in your country is not on a racial basis, it's on a social basis.
Yes.
Here, you see that even though it's an integrated community, depending on where you are in New York City, you'll see groups of white people, groups of black people, sometimes groups of white and black people. But what was your sense of, from being an outsider, being here, essentially the minority, what were your observations about racism in the US?
It's very interesting. I thought that, of course, from the different parts of New York City I've gone to, I've realized a divide according to races. Surprising, I thought it was more Latin, South America or Latino society, Afro-Americans, and I thought it was more of the European community. But as we walked around with Chelsea, I was so surprised to see a Russian community. I didn't know there was a Russian community. In addition to that, I never thought there was an Italian community as well. So it was like, because right way back from history, I thought it was Africa and Europe. That was general, not later, it was Afro-Americans and Europe. So I thought Europe was a bloc. So my really on this program, I've got to know really that even within the European community, there are further divides within New York City. So most, I've been so much thinking about how it was, the history, and I've been from the movie, I went to in Washington, you see the activism movie. Of course, I've been getting some literature about the Afro-American activism and, the ways of life of Afro-Americans. So, as I visited different places here, I realized that there is from beyond New York City where you see, a multicultural diversity of people working together, but there are communities that are living separately. So I'm wondering, first of all, what is the history of this community? We really want to understand, first of all, the Afro-American history. There are a lot of books, and there's a lot of, I'm excited to see the forthcoming movie titled Detroit. I think it's one movie I look forward to. I learned so much through these movies in terms of appetite and Afro-American history. I enjoy the movies so much because they inform me so much. But now how it has got complicated, there are other European kind of, again, divides. So now this has really complicated how I can understand these divides. And when I think about the history and the present has more kind of divides, I'm concerned about the future. Where is this leading to? Because there was a question when I visited the Schomburg Center. A question came up that, what is the future of black communities or immigrant communities as capitalism sets in? As the people who have the money are buying off more of these areas that are occupied by migrants. What is the future? And the similar kind of concern came up while I watched the movie, because usually after the movie, there are usually discussions and panel discussions. So people are submitting different positions. And in the movie, one of the people in the audience and a former alumni of the Cornell University said, way back in history, communities were involved in students, interests at universities. But it depends, generations are changing. There is hardly any kind of Afro-American students are no longer falling back to their communities to support their interests, or to support their, what I call them, oppressions within the different political systems. What is the future of the teenagers, the Afro-American teenagers, in presenting their interest within political environment? So I'm kind of having this I'm not clear about these racial divides.
We thought we were making more progress than we've recently realized we haven't been. A recent election has made more apparent to many of us that the divides in our country are greater than we hoped they were. We put a lot of black men in prison.
As a country, not as an organization.
No,
That's interesting.
no. At Apex, we try to reverse that process.
I was getting worried.
Yeah, no, I can sense it. No, it's just as a
But
country.
you know, I'm wondering, I'm really concerned about it. The world seems to be more fighting for exclusivity. I have this feeling that even these organizations, many organizations that are fighting for inclusiveness, I find it that they are in one way or another excluding others, which is quite interesting when you talk about racial divides and all that.
Well, you remember we spoke about people wearing the ripped up jeans and the fact that jeans with rips in them not long ago wouldn't be accepted by Goodwill and housing organizations. So now we're really confusing the issue, and it's a very odd kind of social situation that we are emulating poor people while at the same time not wanting to interact
Yes.
with them.
With them.
It's very crazy. Do you have
I have
a question on board?
2 questions.
Yes.
One was I know that you met some family just outside of Washington, D.C. on your trip to D.C., and I wanted to know if you learned anything from them about their experience in America or the U.S. as compared to your fellowship, if it affirmed some things that you saw that you liked about the U.S., or if you learned other things. That's my first question, so we'll start there.
Well, I really had a nice trip in Washington DC, and I interacted. I really wanted, actually, as you say, I really wanted. We have interacted because they come back in Uganda. They talk about their life in the US and all that. But what I longed for is to find them within that environment and talk to the children and visit their surroundings and see and even talk to the children. And
Do the children travel to Uganda, or have you not seen them in a long time?
no, the children travel. They travel as a
Okay.
family for Christmas. I think every 2 to 3 years, periodically. They have not been here for long. They've been here for not more than 5 years. So they have traveled once within those years to Uganda to have Christmas, and they travel the whole family. So it's very interesting to see the children within the American context. But they don't change so much. These, their school is quite near their home. They walk to school. I didn't see any so much change in their way of life. Because when, for example, families travel from the US to Uganda for a holiday, people have so many expectations. And people will have so many expectations for me when I go back, because I've been here for 1 month. I know people, when you travel, people have expectations. People have a feeling that you have changed. People want to hear from you. So what I realized that they haven't changed so much. We went with them it was very interesting, we went with them to the Aerospace Museum in Virginia. And we walked around, they were interacting with them. They told me about their friends. I was always asking them what is their day like? What is the ordinary? I found it to me as the ordinary way of life. And what they told me that, they need to work hard. They were clear from the little one to the elder one. I was surprised that the elder one, I confused the grades, I'm sorry, the US system, academic system, and the Ugandan system, so I can't really know her grade, but I was surprised that she's already working. But she's not that old.
One of the things that happens when I talk to people, depending on where they're from, they'll talk about a lack of opportunity at home. and you're talking about these kids here now, it sounds like their parents are saying to them, you have opportunity and you have to take advantage of it.
Exactly. So I was asking, I almost thought their parents are so hard on them. So I asked one, when I got there, one of them was not around. So I asked, where is Dawn? She's the girl, she's the elder girl. The mother told me she has gone to work, and I was like, she has gone to work? She told me she has to work because she has her demands, she has her hair, she has her shoes, she goes to school, but she has to get a place to work and realize that, she has to work in order to get what she wants. So I realized that the parents were really on them, and it's the real life.
Mm-hmm.
Because we always think that in Europe, kids, there's this kind of thing that in Europe, kids are pampered. They really do nothing, and everything comes on, of course, everything comes on silver platter, But this was a real situation, and I liked it so much.
This is really important, I think, when parents do this. It's nice when they want to give their children everything.
And in the home, I realized that it's the kids who, in Uganda, we're used to maids. Our kids are used to maids to do everything. There's a nanny who does everything. These kids are practically doing the entire thing. With their mom is guiding them with everything they're doing. So and so go and do this task. So and so we have to go here, clean up. It is the ordinary, which was very interesting, that they have to get their hands on all the tasks at home to keep the home running.
I have one.
Then please.
I know that you mentioned in other conversations that you really enjoyed the exposure to different things that the fellowship provides, the different activities and points of interest. I wanted to know what aspect or what activity of all the things that you've done in the past month, what do you want to bring with you back to Uganda, whether as a part of your daily life or routine or something that you want to learn more about? I know you mentioned African American history, but that one aside.
Oh, wow. Well, it's, one thing I like with the apexart fellowship is the journal. It's very difficult for you to run a month and you remember the activities of week one and what you liked most and all that. And it's really so nice that even people who ask me now, I refer to them, I send them a link to the journal and they can go through, and maybe particular aspects I can in case they want, but many of them I send them to the journal really. I get the entire picture, so I really get particular. So my mind mainly draws back to the most recent activities. Well, I would categorize these activities, I think, in like 3 categories. The fellowship activities. There's 1, the visits to parks and museums. There's 2, the interaction with different meetings. For example, the next meeting I'm going to with Eric. Then there are those, what I call, things I've never done. Shall we say crazy things? I like all of these things because for the things that I've never done, the crazy kind of things are interesting. I don't know, some of them I don't know. I really need to think about them on how I can, take them on and share them with the people. Most recently, I didn't know what the improv session was about. So, but it was Monday evening. I was traveling from Washington DC. Met Chelsea. We had very nice lunch and we partied. And I was going for this. I didn't know exactly. I was trying to fit in my week, start my week, and here I end up at improv. It was really funny. Very funny. He's just so good at it, and the people who were there I just laughed. It was just, it's kind of not thinking. I think really encourage. I wish I wish I had some I would refer people in Uganda to such sessions. There are those yoga. Yoga is something I've never done. And if someone sees you doing yoga in Uganda, you can just land and laugh. What are you doing? When I was in the battery park doing yoga, I imagined myself in the middle of Kampala with a group of people, and we are doing yoga. We would be having the headlines in the country. Japan. So
I see a performance event.
So it is quite so interesting that those activities are kind of like yesterday evening. I went to this. I've never thought about learning Japanese, going for a class in Japanese, introductory class. So I will think about them, and there's a way. It's quite a different culture here, that such things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And people go for these sessions. I phoned people at the improv class. We were almost 35 for. I never thought anyone is interested in Japanese in New York City. I thought we were going to be a small group of 10 people. We were supposed to be 35 in the session. And I was told there are over 600 people doing Japanese as a language, passionately. So there are these things running up, which I have to find out whether they're running in Kampala. I may not be knowing, but some of these activities are running in Kampala, like it is in New York. Yeah, so that's...
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're getting near the end of our interview and your fellowship. One of the things that we've spoken about a little bit is that when people go home, they sometimes will get depressed because you will go home with a lot of energy, and you find that it is more difficult to make things change than you would like to when you're here. I don't know if you saw this in Matthias a bit, because maybe the excitement with you was able to, but when you go home, the difficult thing will be for you to maintain the energy to actually want to make change. And one thing that I've learned with Apex is that we all talk about making big change. Big change is very hard to make. Small change is easy to make, and it leads to big change. So we now have changed Matthias, and maybe you have changed from being in the program, so it's nice that you can work with each other. But the main thing is not to think too big and then be depressed. It will happen anyway for a little while, but we mention this because there really is a lot of positive that you will bring back, even if you're not consciously doing it with people.
Of course, it's big change is repulsive. People tend to, and of course, what I was thinking about is that together with Matthias, it will be very important for us to pick on aspects. Now that we have an organization running, gradually, if we can pick on small aspects of the program and integrate with them within the program, I think that would be, it's really so, it breaks you down when you come with a lot of energy People are expecting so much from you, and many of these people are just waiting to resist what you're doing. And I realize that is quite a challenging option. But together, I think we can. Together, we can get simple aspects of the program and see, and it will be very. What I wish for at the end of this program is I would very like, I can't imagine having a fellow in Kampala going through. I always want to share as much as possible, but I can imagine having a fellow having to stay in Kampala for 30 days and reading a journal of, it will be very interesting. It will be so interesting.
Okay, now we are talking about that, to see if that works, but you can also do this with your students and the people around you. So,
And the people in the program.
right, because we've been sort of following a little bit of what you and Matthias are doing in the emails that he sends to us, and it's kind of impressive. It's very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Otherwise, I would maybe really thank you, Stephen, Elizabeth, Ryan, and Chelsea for this wonderful opportunity. It's a life-changing opportunity. It's a life-changing opportunity, and it came in the right time of my life. It's really timely, and I'm so thankful and grateful that
Matthias made a good decision.
and you all made a good program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.